for an exhibitor to have a successful show is, like you said, they're very expensive, right? So they need to understand how much a trade show costs to do. So you have your raw space that you have to buy, which that's not negotiable, that's what it costs. And then you have the show manual, which a lot of people don't really pay much attention to. If you want to see a lot of angry people, you stand by where they're called general service contract. Some of the big ones are like Freeman, GES, Shepherd. They run all the labor, all the freight, all the things in and out of it, all the show services that you need. And they put out a manual, and the manual dictates the cost of the show, the procedures, the rules and regulations. And people don't read this stuff, and it's technical. It sucks to read it. I mean, I've read too many manuals, but you know, even though you have a show, you have some shows that travel to different cities, the rules can be different in each of the cities, even though the show's the same. Like in Florida, in Orlando, you can do whatever you want to do there labor-wise. You want to run power under the floor, you can do any of that stuff. But you go to like New York City, you can't even look at a light bulb without hiring somebody. You know, it's like, so the dynamic is different even for the same show. So understanding the rules and regulations, what you're allowed to do, the costs, there's deadlines that they offer. They're discounts, but like it's based off of something that's already really expensive, right? So just think of it this way, it's more expensive if you don't do the discounts that follow shows by the deadlines and stuff. So people get angry at the show because they don't understand what they're doing, and then they get pissed off about how much they get charged for stuff. So you have to understand your budget, you have to understand the cost of actually doing the show, and then knowing what you want to accomplish with the show, and then now you have to create a budget for your filling your raw space. You need carpeting, you need padding, you need a booth structure. That is in itself, so some people either own a booth or if you're gonna rent a booth, you know, so you have to work that angle out. If you wanna rent something, then you need to know how much money you want to spend, because otherwise it's just too hard to work with people. I have people all the time like, well, I have a 10 by 20 booth, how much is it going to be? I'm like, well, what do you want to do? I have to go through a step-by-step process with them to try and hash out what they need and channel their ideas into something tangible that I can say, okay, well, you're looking at, you know, this much money. Like for example, I had a girl call me yesterday, the day before, and she had a 10 by 10 booth for a show, and she saw some online, and you know, she wanted to know how much they were, and I kind of gathered that she wasn't going to have the budget to do this, so I just kind of threw out a number. I was like, it's going to cost anywhere from, you know, $7,000 to $12,000 for one of these types of booths. And I was like, is that within your price range? And she's like, no, not really, you know. And I kind of figured, you know, and so I offered her solutions where you can buy something like this. It has the elements that you need of the booth, and it's going to give you a professional look, and you're going to spend thousands of dollars less. So it's just things like that, and just knowing what to do, not putting too much into a space like we talked about. It's a lot to know. So I'll ask them things like, do you plan to do a presentation? You know, are you going to have a product demo there? Things like that, like trying to find out what do they want to do at the show, like why are you going? Say they have a presentation that they want to do that's a long one, right? And I'll be like, well, one of the good ways you can do that is to actually schedule a presentation, say every hour we're going to do this. And you can even do a giveaway, and you're almost like bribing people to do this. So like say you have an iPad, and somebody will win an iPad if you sit through this presentation. I actually went to a show and I won an iPad, like the very first iPad. Like I won it because I sat through a presentation. So I was like, brilliant. And I ended up hiring the service too because of it. Not because of that, but because of what they did. So I try and find out like what their goals are, like we talked about.
Sure.
And what do they want to accomplish, and then that helps me to recommend what they should do or what kind of booth structure they should have, and how they should fill their space basically. And it's a discussion. I talk them through that, and actually what's great about it is it helps them becoming more comfortable to work with me, because I'm not just trying to sell them something that's so expensive or whatever. I try and fit it to exactly what works best for their goals and their budget actually. I think getting like the attendee list and letting people know that you're going to be there. Let them know the space that you're in. I actually tell my clients to take the renderings that I give them of the booth, and you can make an email marketing campaign out of that so that people actually have the identity of your booth to look for. Pre-show marketing, setting appointments, as many appointments as you can before you actually get to the show. And then so you have your appointments, and then you also have your your walkthroughs, having a plan of action. If you have a number of staff there, if it's more than just a few people, rotate them through in shifts so that they have proper breaks and they have time to eat and they have time to go check their emails. Because one of the most stressful things about a trade show for employees is that they have to do this show and then they have to still do their normal job on top of that, and they just can't be off the grid because they're at a trade show.
Right.
So they need to do their work too. So it gives them time to answer their emails, do some stuff, follow up stuff afterwards. Like make sure you keep your contacts organized, and then you have a process for what you're going to do with them afterwards. If you use the scanners, they provide you with an Excel sheet and they can email that to you. But then again, like I said, you don't know if that information is 100%. But if you have the business cards, somebody's got to take that book and put that information into something digital that they can use afterwards. And I always recommend having like pre-show meeting, maybe even have a meeting during one of the dinners that you have during the show, and maybe after the first day or 2 days, depending on how long it is, and get people's feedback. What's working? Like maybe they need to make those adjustments and not be afraid to change something or add something. Maximize that time that you're there. And then have a post-show meeting also and see what worked, what didn't work, what could we do better next year? Did we stay within our budget? And if we didn't, what went wrong? Why didn't we stay within our budget? Did we just allocate a budget that's not realistic and we should have added this on? And it just helps that process better. And it partly depends too if you do multiple shows a year. Like a lot of companies just do one show a year, but then there's ones that do 3, 4, 5, 10 shows a year.
Sure.
That in itself is a whole different planning process.